Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am sorry about that. I was muted up and I was going through a lovely long introduction there to welcome you back for hour number 2 on today's Kev Baker Show. Hope you enjoyed hour number 1 with Don Wiskin. Always love hanging out with Don. Check out Extendovite over at heartdrop.com. And here we are, the month of May, first show already. And then opening up tonight, I was kind of talking about all the highlights that we had back in the month of May, but how I'm going to strive to make June, July, and every month after that more highlights. Because, yeah, it's one thing for me personally to be able to get Geordie Rose and David Icke onto the show, but I'll never lose sight of the fact that without TFR behind me, and that means all of you out there behind myself and all the other shows here, I wouldn't be able to go and approach people like David Icke or Geordie Rose. So as much as it was for me, it was for all of you as well. And whether you agreed with the information or whether you 110% disagreed, it's my job to really strive to get the best guests out there to present their information, their opinions, so that then you can take that into account when you're forming your own opinions and when you're thinking for yourself. Because that's all I can do. I can't change the world. I wish I could. And all I can strive to do, show after show, is to give you the information so that you can make your own mind up. I provide and you decide. And that's becoming more and more the case the further and further we move into this brave new world. Yes, we'll use the elitist kind of language here. Because this information age, this technological age that we're in, it's absolutely fantastic in one hand. But on the other hand, it's hard to make sense of what's real and what's not. Even our own eyes, can we trust them anymore in a world with deep fakes and all the other AI trickery that can go on out there? It's really, really getting kind of confusing, and that's why I'm glad to be here on TFR with all of you, so that we can at least attempt to try and make sense of this crazy, crazy world. Talking of crazy stuff, I bet there's some shenanigans going on down at the palace right now. I believe Donald Trump is having his state dinner as we speak. And like I was saying, I'd love to be a fly in the soup of the Queen. I mean, a fly on the wall, folks, so I could hear what the Queen and Donald Trump have to talk about. And I've seen social media, it absolutely exploded earlier on today because there was an image of Donald with his slick-looking new hairdo. Looked pretty much back to normal today, to be honest with you, where he met the Queen. And he didn't break his back, bending in two, like Obama did. Remember, he almost touched his toes when he was so kind of keen to take the knee, to bend the knee to the Queen. Well, the image that they caught here, it does look like it's almost a fist bump between the two people, between the Queen. Is she a person? I don't know. I'm only joking, folks. But between the Queen and Donald Trump, and I was just sitting here shaking my head watching all the people on Twitter going absolutely berserk because they seemed to think he had broken some kind of protocol by this funny handshake he had done with the Queen. Then he seen in the chat room earlier on as well, somebody was talking about how he buttoned his jacket up to meet the Queen, but not so much the Pope. And, you know, I think that's the Vatican. They'll just about let anybody in there in any state. And, yeah, the Queen's got a bit more of a strict dress code. That is until the cameras are gone later at night and they're playing charades and it's the Queen's turn and all of a sudden she stands up as a 10-foot reptilian and Donald and Melania turn round and say, "Come on, Godzilla, make it a bit easier for us, will you?" I'm only joking, folks. I'm only joking. I don't really think she's a reptilian. I do think there's something about her bloodline, though. And I seen Donald. He was kind of inspecting the troops today, the guard outside the palace and things. And I don't know, maybe it's just me and I've got this kind of silly way of looking at the world, but never a stranger conglomeration of characters have there been. You know, there's a picture there of Melania looking like she's, I don't know, balancing some kind of plate on her head or something. Good-looking woman, absolutely stunning, you know, but what she's wearing on her head, I just do not know. Maybe she's going to play Frisbee with the Queen. And then you've got, you know, the geriatric lunatic that is Prince Charles. He looks like a drunk uncle that's always kind of lost. He doesn't know where he's going. And then Camilla. Wow, Camilla, a face like a roadmap of Great Britain. Wonder what her and Melania will have to talk about while the Queen and Charles and Prince Philip. Imagine Prince Philip and Donald Trump in the same room. Wow! I would absolutely love to have those two characters mic'd up. Not because I think they're going to be conspiring in the shadows to, conduct any kind of globalist agendas or plans or anything like that. No, because the two of them are absolutely bat crap bonkers. And it would be good to hear just what they say when the cameras and the microphones are off. But that's about as much as I can stomach of the royal family, folks. Not a big royalist. I suppose most of you would have guessed that, right? But we'll take a look in the chat room. I need to make sure I'm on air after I'd kind of messed up with the mute button earlier. Yes, we're on. I think, well, they're talking about the Queen, so I take it we're on. Somebody's talking about how they want a Queen real doll sex bot. King Sweet, you need to take yourself for a really good long walk, sir. You need to have a word with yourself. You've just, excuse me, you've absolutely scarred my imagination, my friend. Dearie me. But I like how you think, and that's probably encouraged by some of the madness myself and Joe Joseph get up to on the streams at the weekend. So really, it's just a product of our own success here on KBS that we see jokes like that. And there she is doing a royal wave in the chat room. Yep, who knows? And we've got all the Trump protesters, they're out in the streets, What political change they think they're going to bring about, walking about in the streets with big blow-up baby dolls of Trump and things. Hey, if that works for you, that's cool. If that gives you something to post on social media tonight to virtue signal to all your anti-Trump friends, that's cool. And don't think I'm a Trump lover out there if you might be new to the show. I don't trust any of them. And David Icke hit the nail on the head the other night when he was talking about the alternative media. And it's not our place to take sides when it comes to politics. It's definitely not our place to push one side's agenda over another side's agenda in the hope of swaying people's minds to vote one way or another. No, absolutely not. So I keep that kind of non-biased view on all of them, that they're all criminals, and at some point or another, they all need exposing. So then Donald Trump, in recent times, he's been quite vocal about 5G. And it's 5G that we're going to be talking about here for the majority of the remainder of this show. We've had Lana Freeland on the show over the past number of years talking about 5G and that kind of technology. We've had Anthony Patch, who I worked with for so long, very closely. We used to get into the 5G stuff. We've had Deborah Tavares on the show here as well, talking about 5G. And it doesn't seem to matter where you turn in alternative media and the websites that we go to try and find the alternative information out there, as opposed to the one fed to us by that lying-controlled mainstream media. 5G is something that's rightly on people's minds right now. And over here in the UK, just to keep you up to date with where we are with our 5G, bearing in mind I live in the smart city that is Glasgow. Smart city equals dumb idea. That's my new kind of way of looking at the smart cities. But it says here that EE, that's one of our providers over here, our network carriers in the UK, it launches the UK's first 5G network, bringing ultra-fast internet to tablets, smartphones, and other gadgets that support the technology. So it says here that EE says the mobile network is planning to reach 1,500 sites. That's 1,500 sites by the end of 2019. And that includes the busiest parts of Bristol, Coventry, Hull, Leeds, and you guessed it, good old Glasgow. Yes, indeed. 5G capable handsets are available from Samsung, OnePlus, LG, HTC, and Oppo. And Huawei, not Hawaii, but Huawei, that Chinese telecoms company, has been left off amid ongoing tensions between the US and China. And that was basically because we were threatened by the Americans in no uncertain terms that they wouldn't be communicating with us if we were using a Hawaii kind of based network when it came to our governmental messaging and communications. And that's what Theresa May had been planning on doing when all of this stuff had been getting rolled out initially. But this 5G, everyone talking about it, just what long-term health effects does it have on us? And it's been said for some time now that we need more independent research into this topic. And over the weekend, I seen Ian Crane, a researcher and an author from the UK. He holds a conference called The Alternative View every year with some of the leading researchers and speakers on all of the various topics that we cover on here, and including 5G. Now, he had tweeted out a story or a paper that had appeared in something called The Lancet. Now, The Lancet is one of the kind of prestigious medical publications. I believe it runs out of here in the UK. But it was the subject matter that really caught my eye, because the paper itself, and I just need to pull it up here, is entitled The Planetary Electromagnetic Pollution. It is time to assess its impact. Now, this paper itself, I'll just pull up who it comes from so you can learn that. Like I was saying, I put this out to Patreons earlier on today so they themselves could see this document firsthand. But the actual paper is from somebody called Priyanka Bandara and David O'Carpenter. And just to read through this here, we're going to read through this and we're going to see what it says, what their thoughts are. And this is coming from the medical kind of profession, okay? It says here, as the Planetary Health Alliance moves forward after a productive second annual meeting, a discussion on the rapid global proliferation of artificial electromagnetic fields would now be apt. The most notable is the blanket of radio frequency and electromagnetic radiation, largely microwave radiation generated for wireless communication and surveillance technologies, as mountain-specific evidence suggests that prolonged exposure to radio frequency electromagnetic radiation has serious biological and health effects. So it says there, just to read that part again, it says the most notable is the blanket of radio frequency electromagnetic radiation, largely microwave radiation. And of course, that's what we're talking about in particular when it comes to the 5G technologies, generated for wireless communication and surveillance technologies, as mounting scientific evidence suggests that prolonged exposure to radio frequency electromagnetic radiation does have serious biological and health effects. It says, however, public exposure regulations in most countries continue to be based on the guidelines of the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection and the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, which were established in the 1990s on the belief that only acute thermal effects are hazardous. Prevention to tissue heating by radio frequency electromagnetic radiation is now proven to be ineffective in preventing biochemical and physiological interference. Now, what that's saying there, folks, is, and I've often joked, and maybe I shouldn't joke about it, but I've often said, that living in Glasgow and bearing in mind that the 5G network was starting to get turned on in November last year, and of course the smart city that I'm in, it's absolutely essential they get this 5G up and running, and it is. And I would say to you, I'm not seeing anyone running about saying that they're feeling like they're getting cooked or they're getting burnt or anything like that. And now we're coming to find out here in this paper that whether you feel a burning sensation or not is absolutely irrelevant, because damage can still be done. And it gets deeper into that here. It says, for example, acute non-thermal exposure has been shown to alter human brain metabolism by NIH scientists. Now, that's the National Institute of Health. It says, just to start that again, for example, acute non-thermal exposure has been shown to alter human brain metabolism by NIH scientists, electrical activity in the brain, and systemic immune responses. Chronic exposure has been associated with increased oxidative stress and DNA damage and cancer risk. Laboratory studies, including large rodent studies by the US National Toxicology Program and Ramazzini Institute of Italy, confirm these biological and health effects in vivo. Now, as we address the threats to human health from the changing environmental conditions due to human activity, the increasing exposure to artificial electromagnetic radiation now needs to be included in this discussion. Now, I'm hoping people can hear me okay out there. I'm just going to scroll down the chat. Just Skype, for some reason, saying we've got a poor connection. And that's despite the fact I'm in a smart city with 350 megabits of bandwidth. Of course, not so that I can watch programs all that faster, just so that I can be surveilled all that much more closer. So it says all good in the chat room. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Polly. Thank you, everyone. So we'll get back into it here, right? And it says chronic exposure has been associated with the oxidative stress stress and DNA damage and cancer risk. Now, that's the stuff we've been talking about forever on this show. Myself and Joe, we go into this a lot as well. The fact that these frequencies can have a really long-term damaging effect on the health, and in particular, DNA. But it's not just me and Joe and others saying it now, because it says here that we have laboratory studies, including large rodent studies by the US National Toxicology Program and Ramazzini Institute of Italy, confirm these biological and health effects in vivo. Now, I think that means in living animals, right, in tissue, as opposed to in silico, as opposed to being simulated on silicon in the computer. I may be wrong there, okay? Irrelevant, though. As we address the threats to human health from the changing environmental conditions due to human activity, the increasing exposure of artificial electromagnetic radiation needs to be included in this discussion. Now, due to the exponential increase in the use of wireless personal communication devices, e.g., mobile or cordless phones and Wi-Fi or Bluetooth-enabled devices, and I'm seeing a lot more people going about with these pods in their ears. The wireless kind of headphones, they look really trendy. You just see the white pod sticking out. Really cool, really convenient. I get that, but the Bluetooth radiation, folks, that's what you have to think about when it comes to them. And I'm no professional. I'm no expert. I'm not telling you 5G good or bad. I'm reading out a study here by a couple of professionals that was published by the Lancet. And they're expressing their concern that basically we're living off regulations and guidelines that were put together long before 5G was ever on the horizon. And it really isn't relevant to the technologies that we're living in amongst right now, today. So it goes on to say here, the infrastructure facilitating them, levels of exposure to radio frequency, electromagnetic radiation, around the 1 gigahertz frequency band, which is mostly used for modern wireless communications, have increased from extremely low natural levels by about 10 to the power of 18 times. So you go back just before this technological curve that took that real steep shoot upwards, before the technology and all these mobile devices and everything else. Go back to when we were living on a planet where electromagnetic radiation wasn't being produced by humans, and it was just a natural level, that natural kind of state that the planet and the things living on the planet were in. Well, between now and or between then and now to the times that we're living in, and it's only set to get more electromagnetic radiation frequency as time goes on, with all of our devices now talking to each other on the Internet of Things, we're talking about an increase of 10 to the power of 18. Now, many of you out there might be thinking, what does that even mean? That's a big number. It's an absolutely massive number. That's all we need to know about that. It's 10 followed by 18 zeros. So you can work out how many quintillion or bajillion that is. When you have an increase of that many times, we're living in a totally different world, folks. Totally different world. So it says here, radio frequency, electromagnetic radiation, is also used for radar, security scanners, smart meters, and medical equipment, including MRI and radio frequency ablation. Now, it's plausibly the most rapidly increasing, just need to scroll up here, sorry, anthropogenic environmental exposure since the mid-20th century, and levels will surge considerably again as technologies like the Internet of Things and 5G add millions more radio frequencies transmitters around us. Unprecedented human exposure to radio frequency electromagnetic radiation from conception until death has been occurring in the past 2 decades. Evidence of its effects on the central nervous system, and I want you to really listen to this, folks, including altered neurodevelopment and an increase of some neurodegenerative diseases, is a major concern considering the steady increase in their incidence. Evidence exists for an association between neurodevelopment or behavioral disorders in children and exposure to wireless devices, and experimental evidence, such as the Yale finding, shows that prenatal exposure could cause structural and functional changes in the brain associated with ADHD-like behavior. These findings deserve urgent attention. Now, this is coming from a paper for the Oceania Radio Frequency Scientific Advisory Association. Their website is www.orsaa.org. Let me just read that last bit again before we go to the break. It says here, unprecedented human exposure to radio frequency electromagnetic radiation from conception until death has been occurring in the past 2 decades. Evidence, they're talking about evidence of its effect on the central nervous system, including altered neurodevelopment and an increased risk of some neurodegenerative diseases, is a major concern considering the steady increase in their incidence. Evidence exists for an association between neurodevelopment or behavioral disorders in children and exposure to wireless devices, and experimental evidence, such as the Yale finding, shows that prenatal exposure, so imagine somebody pregnant sitting with their phone resting on their bump, just something like that, for example, could cause structural and functional changes in the brain associated with ADHD-like behavior. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to today's Kev Baker Show. With me, Kev Baker, coming from not so smart Glasgow. Yes, I'm in the smart city of Glasgow, where 5G fills the air. It really does, and it's 5G that we're talking about today. And in particular, the potential health effects that this may have. Now, we've seen governments around the world, be it Theresa Mayhem and her absolute monstrosity of a government down in Westminster, all the way to the Oval Office and Donald Trump. They're more concerned about rolling out 5G than they are about the long-term health effects of it. And for some time, we've been talking about its potential to damage DNA, things like that. And today, we've been getting into a paper that was produced back in the end of 2018, December time. And it comes from an organisation that is called the Oceania Radio Frequency Scientific Advisory Association. The paper in question is called Planetary Electromagnetic Pollution. It is time to assess its impact. And just to give you an idea of who the ORSAA are and what they're all about, just briefly says here on their welcome page at www.orsaa.org. It says, welcome to the Oceania Radio Frequency Scientific Advisory Association Incorporated. And it says that ORSAA is a not-for-profit organisation of scientists and professionals of various academic disciplines who are interested in the scientific research that investigates the effects of artificial electromagnetic radiation on humans, animals, and the environment. As the name indicates, ORSAA has a specific focus on radio frequency electromagnetic radiation, and that is RF-EMR. That's the acronym that they're using. That's handy to know, when you're doing searches for deeper information, the actual jargon that these companies, these organizations use themselves. So it says that includes high-frequency microwaves widely used for wireless communication and surveillance technologies. However, ORSAA's interest in biological effects research extends to extremely low-frequency fields, such as those utilized for domestic electrification. And ORSAA's ethos is to provide an independent perspective on the relevant science and facilitate evidence-based decision-making by various stakeholders of modern society, including clinicians, educators, safety officers, and policymakers on issues regarding exposure to electromagnetic radiation. And just before the break, we got what I think is one of the most important parts of this paper. And it was talking about the evidence, not the potential, but the evidence coming from Yale and a study that they've done that shows that prenatal exposure to electromagnetic radiation could cause structural and functional damages in the brain associated with ADHD-like behaviour. These findings deserve urgent attention. Now, how long have we been talking about the spike in things like ADHD? I don't mean me personally, but around the world, we've seen autism numbers soaring as well. And a lot of the time, when we're having these discussions, we'll rightly point a finger at and suggest that, the vaccines could be having an issue or playing a part in all of this. And they certainly could. But now we have here evidence, actual evidence, that even prenatal babies, embryos in other words, are being affected in the womb by our devices. And I used one example, and I hope it's not disturbing for anyone to think about, but how many times have we seen this? I know I've seen it. A young lady, pregnant, little bump on, big bump on, irrelevant, and they're resting their phone or their tablet right on their bump, and they're doing their thing. Hey, each to their own. I'm not to criticise anyone. But now we're seeing that that's actually having a detrimental effect on an unborn child. And then we see how parents nowadays, and listen, I'm not parent of the year. I remember when Kevin was probably far too young, looking back with hindsight now. He was given gadgets, he was given technology to play with as well. So please don't think I'm on any moral high ground here. But so many of us have. We've let our children play with these devices. Despite the warnings, we didn't really have anything to go on concrete that it was having an effect. But now we do. And why aren't more and more people talking about this? You look at the spike in things like autism and ADHD and that whole kind of swathe of mental disorders, behavioural disorders, all the things coming at us from the world and wacky world of psychiatry. You just think how that's gone up. Not only did it go up in tandem with the increase in the vaccines that people have been, recommended to get their children. However, you think about the technology as well. Could it be that the technology is playing just as big a part, if not even more so, in some of the problems that we're seeing in children today? Really makes you pause and think. And I tell you what else should make anyone pause and think, because it made me pause and think. You hear about people like Bill Gates and others out there, the billionaire elite class, the cartel, the cabal, whatever name you want to put on them. But how often do we hear about the fact that, especially the ones in Silicon Valley, they don't let their children anywhere near this kind of technology? They don't get Facebook profiles. They don't even get the smartphone so they could go onto a Facebook profile. Now, why is that? What was it that their parents, these, movers and shakers in Silicon Valley, what was it that they knew that really scared them off letting their children have this technology? This here is what it is, folks. They have known all along. And be it this Yale finding, and I'll be digging in deeper to get that for all of you as the week goes on, or whether it goes back to way back in the day and some of the experimentation that's been carried out by governments across the world in secret over the years. We talk about programs like MK Ultra and stuff like that, but there's so many other kind of black operations, black projects going on where being subjected to high levels of electromagnetic radiation frequencies was probably on their list of things to do. And they've probably known for some time, and I mean a long time, just what effects these frequencies can have. And that's why these frequencies are commonly used in things like active denial systems. They're literally the same frequencies that they've weaponized. And why have they weaponized them? Because scientific research in the past have shown them to be a good weapon, a good way to get whatever it is they're planning done. So we'll go on with this report now. And again, I'm only reading from a report. You can make of this what you will. It's just one report. This organization, the Oceania Radio Frequency Scientific Advisory Association, I don't know who's on the board of players there. Certainly doesn't sound like they're taking any kind of backhanders or money from the telecoms company, though, does it? Says at the Oceania Radio Frequency Scientific Advisory Association, an independent scientific organization volunteering scientists have constructed the world's largest categorized online database of peer-reviewed studies on radio frequency, electromagnetic radiation, and other man-made electromagnetic fields of lower frequencies. A recent evaluation of 2,266 studies, including in vitro and in vivo studies in human, animal, and plant experimental systems and population studies, found that most studies have demonstrated significant biological or health effects associated with the exposure to anthropogenic electromagnetic fields. And that's just a really scientific and fancy way of saying man-made electromagnetic fields, Says, we have published our preliminary data on radio frequency electromagnetic radiation, which shows that 89%, or 216 of 242, of experimental studies that investigated oxidative stress endpoints showed significant effects. The weight of scientific evidence refutes the prominent claim that the Something's happened on my computer here. That's okay, folks. It's okay. The weight of scientific evidence refutes the prominent claim that the development of wireless technologies poses no health risk at the current permitted non-lethal radio frequencies exposure levels. Instead, the evidence supports the international EMF scientist appeal by 244 scientists from 41 countries who have published on the subject in peer-reviewed literature and collectively petitioned the World Health Organization and the UN for immediate measures to reduce public exposure to artificial electromagnetic fields and radiation. So it says there are 244 scientists from 41 countries, folks. They are absolutely banging their head off a brick wall trying to get people to look at this, trying to get people to reconsider just what health effects this is going to have on all of us long term, and not just us, but animals, plant life, the planet around us. It says evidence also exists of the effects of radio frequency electromagnetic radiation on flora and fauna. For example, the reported global reduction in bees and other insects is plausibly linked to the increased radio frequency electromagnetic radiation in the environment. Honeybees are among the species that use magnetoreception, which is sensitive to anthropogenic electromagnetic fields for navigation. Man-made electromagnetic fields range from extremely low frequencies, that's associated with electrical supplies and electrical appliances, to low, medium, high, and extremely high frequency, mostly associated with wireless communication. The potential effects of these anthropogenic electromagnetic fields on natural electromagnetic fields, such as the Schumann resonance that controls the weather and climate, have not been properly studied. Now, I think that's pretty important there, folks. The fact that it brings up the bee crisis, and it says there's at least plausible kind of evidence to suggest we should be looking at the effect that our man-made electromagnetic frequency has on natural magnetic fields that the bees use to navigate. But then it also starts up here to talk about the effect that it might be having on the planet itself, the Schumann resonance. Many times have we heard that the Schumann resonance has been acting funny, it's been increasing, it's been doing this, been doing that. I don't think I heard anyone, and that's not to say they haven't said it, but I don't think I heard anyone saying, well, you know, that's the technology that's doing this. Usually myself, I've talked about the area of space that we're moving into, maybe some cosmic rays, maybe the way that our electromagnetic field around the planet is acting erratically. Maybe all of that plays in to the kind of Schumann resonance. But now we're finding out that the top scientists that work with frequencies, that deal with the health effects of various frequencies out there, they're saying that we need to be doing more research. So it goes on to say here, similarly, we do not adequately, and this is where it gets really, really interesting, folks. Not that it's not been interesting anyway, but get a load of what they're saying here, okay? Read between the lines. It says, similarly, we do not adequately understand the effects of anthropogenic, man-made, radio frequency electromagnetic radiation on other natural or man-made atmospheric components or the ionosphere. It has been widely claimed that radio frequency electromagnetic radiation, being non-ionizing radiation, does not possess enough photon energy to cause DNA damage. This has now been proven wrong experimentally. Radio frequency electromagnetic radiation does cause DNA damage, apparently through oxidative stress, similar to near UV radiation, which was also long thought to be harmless. Now, if we go back just a couple of paragraphs there to what they were talking about, maybe it's just me, but it's almost like they're indicating or hinting at the fact that what we're doing to our own atmosphere and how that interacts with these electromagnetic fields that we're producing ourselves, the man-made ones. You know, it's almost as if they're saying, I wonder what effects chemtrailing is having on all of this. That's what I read from that. Listen to it again. Similarly, we do not adequately understand the effects of man-made radio frequency electromagnetic radiation on other natural, so that's anything naturally occurring, and man-made atmospheric components or the ionosphere. Now, we often talk about the cloud seeding, the geoengineering, and how that can be linked to facilities like HARP. I say like HARP because there's so many different facilities with the ability to have that ionospheric heater, which HARP is famous for. These, I think it's pulsed array antennas. That's what you're looking for there, and they generate billions of watts of power, and they start beaming that up into the atmosphere. Now, there's a man-made electromagnetic radiation field, right? What kind of effect is that having on everything? And bear in mind, not just HARP. We've got iSCAT in Norway. There's one down in Wales. These things are all around the planet, folks. I remember at one point seeing it was either 27 or 72. I can't remember what it was. I want to say 27, but I fear it's probably closer to 72 of these HARP-like installations around the world. And we can see here how scientists are not directly saying it, but they are. They're at least querying it. We at least now know that some of them out there, at least the ones working for the Oceania Radio Frequency Scientific Advisory Association, we can at least see how they're concerned, that they've noticed what's going on. So it also says there that it used to be thought that this didn't have enough photon energy to damage DNA. Turns out, according to this paper, it was wrong. And bear in mind that the Lancet were the ones that published this, folks. This isn't some crazy corner of the internet that this is coming from. No. So the next time anyone tells you that that's absolute poppycock, it can't damage your DNA, you're talking rubbish. You're one of those conspiracy theorists, right? You probably believe in QAnon and blue chickens, okay? Well, no, because now we have a paper here that absolutely proves it, okay? It says that DNA can be damaged because the photon energy is powerful enough to have an effect. So it goes on to say, we're almost finished the paper, we're almost finished the show. It's been great today. I love digging into something like this. And I've got a paper we're going to dig into later on in the week that was provided by one of our listeners, Just a Guy. It's all about the weaponization of AI and how the military planners out there talk about this and their fears, their plans, their hopes for the integration of AI into the military. But today we're dealing with 5G. We've often talked about how we need more independent studies, and now we're hearing about scientific organizations and 244 scientists from 41 countries who are absolutely demanding more research into this. But more importantly, we've also found out tonight that there's been obviously testing done, Yale in this one case to start with, that shows prenatal exposure could cause structural and functional damages in the brain associated with ADHD-like behavior. These findings deserve urgent attention. So there have been studies done to show how electromagnetic radiation or electromagnetic frequencies are having an effect on unborn babies. Then think of when a child, their brain is still forming, even the bones in the skull are yet to fuse. And the most formative, important time of that brain's entire lifespan, the information it's taking in, these smart devices that we see more and more children using is having a direct effect on that brain physiology and biology. We wonder sometimes how attention spans and things like that are going down. Folks, they're literally changing the way that our brain is constructed. That sounds a bit out there, right? But you think about it, like this very paper said, in the past 2 decades, anyone born since, say, I don't know, in this century, they've always been subjected to this high level of man-made electromagnetic frequencies. And that's only set to increase as the 5G and the technology goes up. And more smart devices are rolled out, and we go out and turn and buy them. So you can see how instead of, even just plateauing off to a certain level, this is only going to get worse over time. And then you think about the fact that they want global coverage. There will be no escaping these electromagnetic frequencies. That's my point. And if you don't care about yourself, then surely we care about unborn children, right? Right? That's what the elites usually do. That's what the mainstream media usually do. They try to pull on our heartstrings when they want people to think about things in a different way. Well, if it's that one thing that causes you to really, start to realize what a danger 5G could be long term, think about the effects it's having on the kids. Maybe you've got a young kid right now. Maybe you know somebody in your family that's pregnant. Well, you know what to say to them the next time if you see them holding a mobile phone anywhere near that bump, right? Right? We'll finish off this paper here, folks. And thank you for bearing with me and letting me, take up your time while I shared this today. It says here, at a time when environmental health scientists take global issues such as climate change and chemical toxicants in public health, there is an urgent need to address so-called electrosmog, a genuine evidence-based approach to the risk assessment and the regulation of anthropogenic electromagnetic fields will help the health of us all, as well as that of our planetary home. Some governmental health authorities have recently taken steps to reduce public exposure to radio frequency magnetics radiation by regulating use of wireless devices by children and recommending preferential use of wired communication devices in general. But this ought to be a coordinated international effort. Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. Especially in a week where we've had it reported that 5G is alive and well in the UK. And get this, right? Get this. Even if you still believe that 5G is all about us being able to download your favourite movie or your favourite Kev Baker show, even faster than you can on 4 or 3G, then ask yourself this question. Why then in the UK is there a data cap from EE, the one provider so far that is giving out 5G network coverage? Now, why did I bring that up? Well, the big selling point is that you'll be able to watch 4K movies, speed of light. It'll be there on your phone watching it, no buffering, full 4K quality, right? As much as you can get on a mobile phone 10 inches from your face. But if that's the case then, and they want you to take advantage of that, think of the file size for one 4K movie. For one, just one high definition film, not even going into 4K. Well, before too long, you start to find that you're reaching that data cap. And it's a 10 gigabit data cap. That's the most you can get. That's the most money can buy. So yeah, you could look at that as brilliant marketing, because they know people will need to come back and buy extra gigabytes every month, despite already paying through the nose for something that's literally not just killing us, but the planet around them. So that's another thing, folks. We know, and I know all of you out there know that the whole 5G thing, it's not for our convenience. I get that. But point that specific instance out to people. Say to them, if you think it's for your 4K football, your soccer, or watching this program or that program, then why on earth are they not giving you uncapped data to do so? Why are they not doing that? Because this was never about our gadgets and our smart devices or us. It was about the Internet of Things and this new system, this literal new world that we're moving into, or that we're converting and adapting our current world into. Never did I think I would see a scientific paper talking about the fact that all of this technology and the frequencies we use to communicate between devices could well be having an actual effect on the Schumann resonance of the planet. And you think of how long humans have been here. Okay, whether you think we were put here by aliens or it was God or Buddha, or I don't care how you come to think about we got here, but you think about all of those centuries, all of those millennia that passed, where we were living under one Schumann frequency that we were tuned into. And now, not so much. We're not tuned into this new one, folks. We'll be back tomorrow on the Kev Baker Show. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for chilling out today. Good night, God bless, and wherever you are, make it TFR.